Now, can you think of anything more romantic than that? The excitement of waiting night after night, day after day, and then suddenly for it to happen, and for the girls, they're waiting ready, they're middle of the night, their lamps are burning and they're waiting and they're listening. And they hear the shout and they hear the blast on the trumpet, and the bride makes sure a veil's on and that a lamp's alight, and suddenly in rush all these men and they abduct them and take them away. The bride would be sure to have a veil in place when they arrived, and this would single her out as the bride. At night she would always have a lamp burning and ready to take with her. And so it is with us and Christ. 1 Thessalonians 4:13-17 describes it for us in dramatic detail. It says, "But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep." It's talking about those that have died. "That ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep or have died in Jesus," that's people who are saved, who've died, "will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep, or those which have died. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first." Just exactly the same as the wedding ceremony. "Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up," snatched away, "together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord." Christ, at his Father's bidding, will descend from heaven with a shout. The trumpet will blow and we will be caught up, raptured, translated. It will happen in the twinkling of an eye. We go over to 1 Corinthians 15:51. It says, "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep," that's die, shall not all die, "but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, when that trumpet blows. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed." Right. This is talking about the rapture of the church. It will happen in the twinkling of an eye. As quickly as you can possibly imagine, we will be abducted. We will be stolen away. We as the bride of Christ. He will come, the trumpet will blow, and we will be abducted, stolen away. The world will turn away for the blinking of an eye, and we will be gone. Is our veil on and our lamp burning? Christ could return at any moment. His coming is imminent. It could happen at any time. It hasn't happened, and a lot of time has passed. Every day, it's obviously getting closer, and it could be today. It could be today. Under the Jewish system, the bride was taken to the groom's father's house, to where the groom had prepared the bridal chamber. Now, this is what he's been doing for the year. He's been getting things ready. The bride and the groom went into this chamber and remained there for 7 days. Now, this is how the system worked. Just the two of them went into the bridal chamber. The guests waited outside. Now, they waited expectantly, especially the best man, who stayed right near the door. And he was listening for the voice of the groom. Right? Now, what was he listening for the groom to tell him? Well, the marriage wasn't a marriage until it was consummated. And so the best man, the friend of the groom, waited for the groom to tell him through the door that the marriage was consummated and they could begin to celebrate. And until then, they would be waiting to... And sometimes this would be a couple of days even. And they would just wait, patiently wait. Now you can imagine if you've got all these groomsmen and all these bridesmaids together, they would be all getting to know each other in this time. And it wouldn't be like as if the time would drag for them. In fact, this was one of the times that was the most romantic for all those involved in the wedding, apart from the bride and groom, because this was their opportunity to get to know each other. But the best man, he would wait by the door and he would listen for the voice of the groom. And when the groom told him through the door that the marriage was consummated, they all would rejoice. And so this is what John the Baptist was talking about in John 3:27 to 29. John 3:27 to 29. And John answered and said, a man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Ye yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but that I am sent before him. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom. He's talking about Christ. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom. But the friend of the bridegroom, which standeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This my joy therefore is fulfilled. And this is John the Baptist saying he's the friend of the bridegroom. And the bride belongs to the groom, not to him. And he's saying, I rejoice at the voice of the bridegroom. And this is what he's talking about here, this betrothal and wedding ceremony. It was here in the bridal chamber that the bride finally passed from being a bride, which she'd been for a year or so, into the glorious, long-awaited and exalted position of being a wife. And so it is with us in Christ. In John 14, Jesus said before he went to the Garden of Gethsemane, let not your heart be troubled, ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. He will take us to the mansion he has prepared for us. We will be shut in with Christ for 7 years. This is when the beam of judgment takes place. This is when we are judged not for salvation, not for our sin, but for rewards. Just as the Jewish groom finally found out what sort of a bride he had, so Christ will find out what he has got in us. Will he be pleased or will he be bitterly disappointed? Right? When he finally has us to himself and he discovers what he's got, will he be pleased or will he be bitterly disappointed? What have we done to prepare for this time? Just as the Jewish bride found out just what sort of a groom she had, so we will finally know Christ, our bridegroom, in all his glory and power and honour. For us, it will be an incredibly wonderful, marvellous time. And we will find nothing lacking in Christ. But what will he find in us? That's the question I often ask myself. It will be here in Christ's bridal chamber that we will be at long last glorified. No longer will we be the bride, but the wife of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, a queen arrayed in fine linen, beautiful to behold. Under the Jewish system, there was a marriage feast with all the guests, etc., and a great celebration. And so it is with us. There will be the marriage supper of the Lamb. We read about in Revelation 19. Revelation 19. verses 7 to 9. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honour to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. Now this is talking about us as the bride of Christ. There's the marriage supper of the Lamb, and here, notice she's no longer a bride, she's now the wife of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and we'll finish it there.